go shooting off fancy fighting words if you ain't got the brass neck to back them.
So in case you hadn't already realised, they're here. Not quite little green men, but close enough. ArmA 3 Contact DLC has just hit the Steam store, and if you're interested in nabbing yourself a key for the new expansion, I'm running a giveaway which I'll detail later in the video. Now, as you probably gathered from the intro, and hopefully the title before you clicked on this video, this review will be littered with spoilers. I want to cover absolutely everything in my review, but if you're the sort of person who likes to keep all the surprises covered up until you get your hands on it, then this isn't the review for you. Throughout this video, I'll go over some key points to help you decide whether or not you should pick up the DLC, as well as what I liked and didn't like personally. I will focus this video on the quality of the single player campaign. However, my previous ArmA video about the expansion mentioned the other content you get with the DLC, such as the incredible Livonia terrain, which is in my opinion worth it on its own. What's the gameplay like? If I had to sum it up in one word, hard. Absolutely relentlessly difficult and heart-poundingly nerve-wracking at times. They have really bloody captured that fear of the unknown with plenty of manga-esque moments to go round. Now you might be thinking, wait, what? It's only me versus some stupid ArmA 3 bots? Easy peasy, just let me set up with my night vision bipodded super duper machine gun turret and mow them all down. Nah. The Contact campaign doesn't give you any of that. You're not only up against a superior alien force who far exceed your capabilities, but you are also caught up in the midst of an occupying Livonian Defence Force, or LDF. You often have weak caliber weapons, a lack of long-range sights, and no working night vision because of the EMP blasts from the alien interferences. If there's one way I could sum it up, it's like constantly feeling watched and hunted as you run from mission to mission, forest tree line to forest tree line. You feel at risk and unsure of what to expect. It falls way outside of your ordinary player versus enemy ArmA arsenal. If there's a jeep, I take an RPG. If there's a jet, I grab an AA launcher. If there's a tank, I place some AT mines. In reality, you have no idea what you will need when facing an extraterrestrial threat. Part of the campaign's immersive feeling is also helped because of the clever choice to set it all up on the Livonia terrain. You get very strong ArmA 2 Chernarus and DayZ vibes because of the identical buildings and Eastern European forested terrain. There's just something about being in these conifers that gives you a weird combination of paranoia that someone's scoping in on you, also protection that you're covered by all these zillions and zillions of trees. Your mind often plays tricks on you, and you'll notice things under the powerful moonlit nights, making you stop and zoom in to check it out. It's a paradise of psychosis and fear. So I'll say it again, the map is what makes this campaign so well executed. Watch this little clip as an example of the kind of atmosphere you can expect in Contact single player.
Ah, fuck! Keep going!
Losing visual.
God damn it!
That EMI is getting stronger.
Also, I don't know what the devs have done with the difficulty sliders, but the enemy AI are now punishingly accurate. No more weird head glitching as they get shot in the back. You shoot them and you pay the price. Their camps are surrounded with powerful floodlights that will catch you like a deer in the headlights even when you're crouching around, and once they hone into your position, they'll nearly always headshot you. I've had loads of occasions where the AI have spotted me, cracked some deadly accurate body shots, and I've limped away into the trees, running scared. It's something different to what you'd expect, not just from an ArmA single player where you might normally just line up targets with your scoped rifle and pick them off one by one, but other single player campaigns too. You feel genuinely hunted and outmatched a lot of the time. This of course adds to that danger and horror element you need in sci-fi themed entertainment. If you're looking for atmosphere, the Contact campaign has you covered. Now obviously the AI aren't just Terminator style hackbots who can 360 one-tap you through trees. No, they're much cleverer than that, and as a result, stealth gameplay is rewarded. Unlike former complaints in Chernarus back when the Apex campaign was released that the AI could see players through trees, the devs seem to have added some really nice quality of life or quality of death improvements to the enemies so that they only shoot what they can clearly see and their alert levels rise, like in other single player games such as Metro, fall away into the shadows after a close call and they'll lose interest eventually. This makes for some really nail biting but satisfying encounters when you crawl into an enemy base undetected to get what you need. Now this point is a dual-edged sword. ArmA games are known for tactical, considered, slow gameplay, but this is a whole different level. If you aren't a patient player, this won't be your cup of tea. This brings me onto the Spectrum device, which is an exercise, masterclass, undergraduate, doctorate and PhD thesis in patience. This thing has been the bane of my life. I appreciate the devs are trying something new out here, like a new type of warfare which is electronic and radio interference warfare, but my god, the amount of times I've had to restart missions or just do the campaign unlock cheat thing so I can continue playing because this damn gadget won't trigger a script completion unless you're in the 0.0001% place to make it work properly. Granted, when it does work properly, it's bloody awesome. You can lead entire squads of enemies blocking your pathway by impersonating their HQ with fake call signs. It's really nifty, but most of the time the campaign relies way too much on it, and the memes on Reddit are slightly, if not entirely true. Be ready to use this puppy a lot. However, I would say to cut a lot of slack for the devs here, the campaign has just released with this new type of gadget, and I'm sure the ease of use and window for triggering script completions with this tool will be sorted out over time. And last of all, in terms of gameplay, aside from all of the sneaking around, there's some really nice exploration and non-linear sandboxery stuff allowed. You have side quests, areas of interest to visit and to get better gear, and nice ways to take out enemies such as hacking drones like UGVs to turn them against those that control them. The cutscenes are very well placed, well animated and extremely well voice acted in my opinion. They've really gone above and beyond in terms of creating believable characters with real narratives and backstories. Before I get into the story itself, which forms the second and last part of this review, one really relative point I feel is important to mention to you guys is the performance. If your PC chugs on ArmA 3 with Stratus and Altis vanilla assets, you will, put bluntly, struggle to play this without setting your house alight. I consider my PC pretty beefy, an i7 6700K, GTX 1070, 32GB of RAM for a 1080p display, etc, and I was stuck at the 30s to low 20s for a great deal of the time. The RV4 engine has never been pushed to such absolute limits. The devs are in a way trying to execute the amount of scripts needed in a near AAA single player, which is really awesome to see in terms of pushing the scope for quality. but the tired engine's age really shows here. There are times when there are just too many scripts, aliens flying around, crazy particles, squads of enemies, explosions, and it's just all too much, and you chug along with low frames. Keep this in mind if you have a weak PC. Part of Livonia's beauty is also its demise. It cripples machines. What's the story like? As a potted history of how the story goes, you play as an American infantryman called Aidan Rodwell, a former linguist who can speak 6 languages. As a result, he gets drafted into communicating via the Spectrum radio device with our alien visitors. The LDF begin to take up arms against aliens after they take out an entire LDF platoon. The Americans defend the aliens and kill the LDF. The Russian Spetsnaz team up with the Americans to keep the aliens alive, and eventually we leave Livonia in a chopper watching the Russians come in to clean up the mess. That's it in a nutshell. The story is like a sci-fi exploration military sandbox mishmash with a few interesting characters dotted in throughout, such as Jack Stipe, Aidan's US drone expert comrade, or Ian Kesson, the Scottish scientist who advocates the peacekeeping between armed forces and the extraterrestrial guests. The story keeps you hooked with each of the cinematic cutscenes. They often tease the player with exposition, or the fancy word for storytelling information, that leads you closer to the mysteries, marvels, and hysteria of the alien presence in Livonia. The story is tightly woven in a sort of Subnautica style, where you stumble across things that piece together the jigsaw puzzle, but ultimately you still have primary objectives to fulfill, which are guided usually via the radio comms. It doesn't feel too linear, but it does verge a little bit too much in this realm at times, where you cannot progress without radio jamming this or probing away at that. When I first played through it, without any spoilers beforehand, I was dazzled by the cool spaceships, their bright blue lights, and powerful laser beams on those who challenged them. But after that wore off, I sort of expected more and more. I think this should have been reserved for the final few missions, savouring the drops of what the ArmA engine could realistically provide, rather than exhausting it all in the earliest missions. The ending, as a result, was a bit of a letdown. You fight off a final LDF invasion against the mothership network, which is sieging up from the ground in a big mess of alien roots. And when it's over, as I said, you're picked up by a helo, the Russians take over, and that's it. Job done. The world is said to have been, and I quote, never been the same again, but we just have little to no evidence of that, bar the radio news channels in the epilogue to follow. It just felt like they could have fleshed out that final scene with more of an ultimate cliffhanger encounter, something that would have really left us scratching our heads, and I think this ending choice let it down for me. Therefore, if you're looking for an amazing, memorable narrative arc that rivals other great science fictions, this isn't the one. If you're looking to play in a new ArmA 3 terrain, have some interesting alien encounters, new gear, factions and weapons to play with, as well as support the marvellous ArmA 3 team, then I can't highly recommend it enough to anyone with a bit of cash in their wallets. I hope you guys found this review helpful in forming your decisions, and please take my opinions with a grain of salt. I'm just offering up my thoughts from my first playthrough. Remember that things can always change with game updates and time. Have a fantastic week guys, and I'll see you in the next video. Tommy out.